Do you always find yourself coming up with excuse after excuse not to do your dreams, to follow your dreams, to get that PhD that you've always wanted, to become that brain surgery that you always wanted? You're always coming up with excuses. I don't have the right people behind me to become this politician. My parents don't come from a high societal family for me to become this politician, or my parents and my family, I don't have any smart people who've been to college. We don't come from a wealthy family. I come from the poor, so I'm gonna be stuck in doing what my ancestors did, or what my father or my granddaddies did. So I will be talking about that a little bit, and referencing King David, who was one of the, the time lowest persons, and did the lowest job in that society, in the Jewish mindset. Doing anything with your hands was the lowest of the low, especially keeping the sheep. And he was a sheep keeper. That's not the only thing. And on top of that, he was wealthy. His family was wealthy. His father was wealthy. He had many sheep, and he was the 8th brother. Actually, he was the youngest, King David. And it was kind of unheard of to have your youngest son, or even any of your sons, to keep the sheep, like to be a servant. To be a servant, I mean, you just didn't do that. It's like Donald Trump having one of his children clean his bathrooms, like to be his housekeeper. I mean, it's just, that's basically the analogy. That's equivalent to that time of a wealthy person having his child to keep the sheep. So that was unheard of. And that was David's job. Okay, that was the king of Israel. Okay, we're talking about David here. For some reason, David was like the black sheep of the family, and one cannot help but to wonder, maybe they saw something in him. That's why they were always jealous of him. Even his father, I mean, he didn't kind of like him. When Samuel went to anoint one of his sons to be the king, when he didn't know who the king was, he basically didn't even mention David. So he mentioned all his 7 sons, and he never mentioned David. So Samuel had to basically technically force him to call David from keeping his sheep to make him the king, okay, to anoint him to be the king, because he always liked his 7 other sons because they were all macho. They were in the army. They were in the army of the king, actually, of Saul. So I'm going to approach it from there, when Israel is fighting Goliath. Okay, so Goliath is against the Philistines. The Philistines had this Goliath who was their warrior, and he basically went against Israel, right? And he wanted to kill Israel. So they're all scared, and David is there just to take lunch. His father said, "Hey, David, come here. I need you to take lunch to your brothers, okay? Who are trying to kill this Goliath, who are fighting in the army of the king." So David, to make a long story short, he goes, he takes the lunch to his brothers. This is 1 Samuel 17, actually. 17, let's start from 28. And Eliab, his elder brother, heard when he spake unto the men. And Eliab anger was kindled against David. And he said, "Why comest thou down here? Why are you really here, David? What the heck are you doing here?" Okay. This is David like asking questions to the other soldiers. "Hey, what's going on here? What happens when you kill this Philistine? And with whom hast thou left thou few sheep in the wilderness? And who did you leave your few sheep in the wilderness? Shouldn't you be doing your sheep job, you stinky little boy?" I know thy pride and the naughtiness of thine heart. I know your insolence and the wickedness of your heart. I mean, his brothers did not like this dude, okay? For thou art come that thou mightest set the battle. You came to watch the fight. Thou hast come here only to watch the battle. And David said, what have I now done? What did I do now? Is there not a cause? Like, can I not even ask a question for crying out loud? And he turned from his toward another. And he basically didn't say, okay, I'm out of here. He basically didn't get annoyed at his brother and left. No, he didn't care. Ladies and gentlemen, when somebody tells you something, just wash it off. Just wash it off. Wash your haters off, okay? And he turned and continued and again talked to the other soldiers. To make a long story short, okay, go to 32, 1 Samuel 17:32. And David said unto Saul, let no man's heart fall because of him. Don't worry, he said. Thy servant will go and fight with the Philistine. I will go fight with a Philistine. He's talking to the king right now, okay? This little boy is talking to the king of Israel. Look what God can do. He could get you from the lowest of the low and put you in front of the king. And Saul said to David, thou art not able to go against a Philistine to fight with him. What are you talking about? For thou art but a youth and a man of war from his youth. You are only a boy, and he has been a warrior since his youth. And David said unto Saul, thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him, and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he rose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him, and slew him. This is what I did, my king. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and his uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. See, he didn't say he defined the Israelites. He mentioned God. Whatever David did, he mentioned God. Even though he sinned, he didn't leave God. Whatever he did, he never left God. David said, moreover, the Lord that delivereth me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said unto David, go and do your thing. And the Lord be with you, he said. 38. And Saul armed David with his armor. Now, this is where I'm going to teach from. This is very amazing to me. Saul dressed David in his own clothing. And he put a helmet of brass upon his head, a helmet of bronze, a head of brass. Also, he armed with a coat of mail, and equipped him with a coat of mail, and gave him a breastplate to wear. These are different translations, ladies and gentlemen. And had him clothed with a coat of metal. And David girded his sword upon his armor. And he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. And he struggled in vain to go, for we had not tried them. He's never worn this armor. He's never been in a battle. This is too heavy for him. This is too big for me. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these. I cannot go with these. King, I can't, for I have not proved them. And David put them off. This is so powerful here, ladies and gentlemen. For I have not proved them. I cannot fight with these things on. Okay, I don't know how to explain it. I have fought before without these things and had victory without the armor, without the sword, without my helmet, without the shield. I did not have any of this. God did not give any of this when I killed the bear, when I killed the lion. I did it with my bare hands. So if I'd done that before, without the king's armor, without the best of the best, then I could do this the same way. This is so powerful, and as you all know, he took his staff in his hand and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook and put them in his shepherd's bag, which he had even in his scrip. He put the stones in his shepherd's bag. He basically used everything that he has used before, that he's always used in the previous battles that he had, which was with animals. He'd never battled a man, let alone a giant. And his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. And the Philistine came and drew near unto David. Okay, I don't want to go any further. And to make a long story short, he slings the man, he kills the giant that nobody was able to kill. David killed this giant. You're always, like I said, coming up with excuse why you can't do this. And sometimes it's like, if God proved himself to you so many times, even in that little thing that you did, so if you conquered that little thing, what makes you think you're not going to be able to conquer what you're in right now, or what's coming to you in the future? Ladies and gentlemen, we have a proclivity to forget the previous blessings and victories that God helped us with. Like the children of Israel, God gave them manna from the sky, and they ate, and next day they got hungry, they had nothing to eat, and they said, oh, we're gonna starve to death, and God gave them birds. And then the next day they said, oh my goodness, we have no water, oh my God, we have no water, we're gonna dehydrate ourselves to death. And God gave them water. It's like, no matter what God does to you, you just forget it. Like, why don't you, and that's the secret of your blessings, when you appreciate God, when you're grateful for what he's done, and when you always remember the things that he's done for you in the past, he will take care of these problems too. Most of the time, I see people, they're just not grateful. They're just always complaining. And if I were God, I wouldn't bless them with anything. On top of that, they're not grateful. They're just not grateful. It's like, imagine you gift somebody a car, and the next day they come and say, well, you didn't give me extra tires, and now I have to buy extra tires. Had you not given me this expensive cars, I wouldn't have to get $2,000 worth of tires. I can't afford $2,000 tires. Why did you give me this expensive car? That's how people are. Trust me, that's how people, I know that's stupid, but that's how they are. And that's how they are with God. They are never grateful. They're never grateful. No matter how God gives them, how much God gives them, they just all of a sudden forget about it. Oh, I have this problem. Oh, I have that problem. And what makes you think God is going to give you more? If you don't appreciate the $1, he's never going to give you that $1,000. If you don't appreciate the $1,000, he's never going to give you that $100,000, and so on and so forth. And people just don't get that. David refused to conquer and to fight with other people's help. Basically, he did not want help because he didn't get help before. There was no help when he was all alone in the wilderness with the lion and with the bear and with his sheep. So if he conquered that, he said, I could conquer this. If you've done that before, then you could do this. It doesn't matter that it's a big problem. If God helped you with that small problem, he will help you with this little. He will help you with this big problem. All God says to you is do what you can, ladies and gentlemen, and He will do what you cannot. So you do what you can in your own power and with what you have and with the money that you have. And all the missing parts and the missing money and the missing strength and the missing brain and the missing intelligence, he will fill it. You just have to trust him. David had to trust God. So in order for David to conquer the Goliath, he had to put all his trust on God and not on the armor, those big armors, not on the vest, chest that they wore, during the Roman times. Ladies and gentlemen, this was unheard of. This has never been, you can't find it in the Bible, you can't find it in any history books, in any battle history books, whatever, especially in Roman, Greek times, where they fought without their armors and their swords and their helmets and their vests, like the iron vest that they wore, those hot, handsome, like Greek guys and the Roman soldiers. That was unheard of. Do you understand what David did? He basically went technically naked with regular clothes to fight this Goliath. And then when you read on, the giant says, "Are you kidding me? Are you mocking me right now? You're like a little dog trying to fight me?" He was amazed. Like, you expect to fight me? But because David mentioned God's name, God had to work there. Because David mentioned God's name. So if he didn't win, then basically God would have taken the blame and God would have been embarrassed, because he said, "Oh, I come to you. I don't come to you with a sword. I come to you with the name of my God." So the secret is always putting God first in everything you do. Going on that job interview, rely on God. Do all you could do with your power, and then the rest, he will fill in the blanks. He basically fills in the blanks. All he needs from you is trust in him. It means a lot to God when you put all your trust and all your strength on him and say, "You are my strength. Without you, I cannot do anything." You have to know in your heart, deep down in your heart, that without God, you're nobody. And you can't just fake that. If you don't, you have to really feel it.